Jatayu and Sampati. Very interesting history. Jatayu, hero. Sampati is his in the Ramayana theme. Table 4. It's right there. I'm doing fine. It's easier to, but it's a nice color. In the kitchen, maybe. Okay. One of the main lessons or teachings or messages of the whole Ramayana we've been hearing is surrender. Taking shelter of Lord Ramachandra and different considerations and elements involved in taking shelter of Lord Ramachandra. And Jatayu is one of the special examples, along with Vibhishan. Jatayu is right up there. And there's 9 processes of bhakti. They're found in Srimad Bhagavatam. Prahlad Maharaj expresses them to his father. His father wanted to know what's the best thing you've learned from your teachers. He wasn't thinking Narada, but Prahlad was thinking Narada. And he said, the best thing I've learned is Shravanam Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, etc. 9 processes that end with Atma Nivedanam. Atma Nivedanam. Total self-surrender. Total self-surrender. And Ram Leela Vibhishan is one such person. When he surrenders, he leaves Ravana's camp, comes to where Ram is, requests from Sugriva, please find out if Lord Ram will accept me. Surrendered. So many things are discussed. When Ram agrees, Vibhishan comes forward. He falls at Lord Ramachandra's feet, and he makes an important statement. Whatever is the essence is, whatever is mine is yours, and I am yours. These 2 psychic divisions of material consciousness are I and mine. Aham and mama. I and mine. And everything that's mine is now yours, and everything that's me is yours. I'm at your service. That's Atma Nivedana. And Jatayu was another example. And a wonderful, colorful history of Jatayu. We'll hear some more as we go along. One of the handouts that was sent, I believe, by Jai Satchidananda even before I got here was, did you get one? 18 cardinal lessons from Ramayana. So you can see her afterwards, and anyone that didn't receive those mail-outs and handouts, see her and she'll see that you get a copy. The background is The spiritual master of Ramanujacharya was Yamunacharya. Yamunacharya extensively studied and wrote about Ramayana. Yamunacharya taught everything to Sri Shailapurna. Sri Shailapurna was the maternal uncle of Ramanujacharya. And Ramanujacharya left his residence, went all the way to Tirupati, climbed up the hill, and spent long time with Sri Shailapurna to learn Ramayana from Yamunacharya or via Sri Shailapurna. And then he, in turn, Ramanujacharya taught his disciples, and we now have those essential teachings distilled down to 8 cardinal lessons. And that's the PDF that you'll receive a copy of shortly. And there's 2 items that specifically mention Jatayu's name. Now, the example text comes from one of the Sri Vaishnava commentators who also lived in Srirangam maybe 900 years after Ramanujacharya. He was instructed in a dream by the presiding deity in Tirupati to write this commentary, so he did. And he, in his commentary, this is where it's found. It's Sarga 5 of Balakanda. A person who is eligible to surrender unto the Lord should engage in devotional service in full surrender on a daily basis with one's mind fixed upon the Sharanya. Sharanya means the person unto whom one is surrendering. In case it's Lord Ramachandra. Fix your mind on Lord Ramachandra. Continue to engage in daily devotional service for your whole life and wait for the time when the body falls. Jabri did that. Great personality in Ramayana. And Jatayu did that. And Jatayu lived for a very long time here. And his whole life was dedicated like that. Well, major portion of his life was dedicated like that. A second item, this is out of the 18, there's listed by numbers. Even great souls encountered calamities in this material world. Therefore, one should understand the nature of this material world, all the while looking toward the ultimate solution to not return to this world. Continue steadfast devotional service while going through any calamity. Reversals were met by both Lord Rama and Jatayu. So that's a little introduction to the personality of Jatayu, his role in Ramayana as far as teaching process of surrender. He's a good example of surrendering everything. According to Uttarakhanda of Ramayana, Jatayu and Sampati were descendants of the great sage Kashyapa. Now, the information that's in Ramayana and the information that's in Srimad Bhagavatam vary slightly. In Ramayana, it is stated that Kashyapa is one of the mind-born sons of Brahma. And in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it's stated that he's not. It's stated that he is the son of Marichi, not Maricha, but Marichi. And he, Kashyapa, was married to 13 of the daughters of Daksha, one of whom was Vinita. And between Vinita and Kashyapa, a son born was Aruna. And from Aruna, this is the same as Ramayana and Bhagavatam. Aruna and Shani, his wife, they had 2 sons, Jatayu and Sampati. And then there was a little commentary discussion. How do human beings produce birds? The answer is they're invested with some vibhutis or some special powers by Vishnu for the purpose of creation, much like Brahma was invested with Trishti Shakti, or the power to create, by Vishnu. That's how Brahma did what he did. And how the Prajapatis do what the Prajapatis do is being invested by, vibhuti is the term that's used. Just like in the 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Opulences of the Absolute, the Sanskrit is Vibhuti Yoga. Of sharks, of fish, I'm the shark, and of horses, I'm Uchaishrava, and so forth and so on. Of the mountains, I'm Himalaya. Those are vibhutis. Vibhutis of Krishna. So in the process of creation, the Prajapatis are needed. After the universe is built, they have to fill it up. So Vishnu empowers Brahma to build the universe, and he empowers Prajapatis to fill it up. That's how it happens. So Kashyapa, who is a nice painting, Kashyapa painting, through his grandchildren were birds. They were brothers, Jatayu and Sampati. Sampati was the elder. And they were born in Satyuga, millions of years before Lord Ramachandra appeared in the next yuga. So they're elder by far. And they would, when they were younger, they would fly here and there and compete to see who could soar higher and higher and higher. They made a promise to sages on Mount Kailash. They're going to follow the path of the sun. When the sun rises in the east, we'll follow the sun, and we'll follow the sun until the sun sets in the west. And there they go, flying high in the sky, bent upon defeating each other. They flew around the blazing sun. Then some misfortune happened. When it became midday, Jatayu, the younger brother, visibly was affected by the heat of the sun. So Sampati, the elder brother, covered Jatayu with his wings. And that wasn't a good thing because his wings burned. His wings were scorched by the blazing heat of the sun. He lost his wings, and he plummeted back to earth and fell on the Vindhya mountains. We're going to hear some details about what that experience was like, what happened when he landed in the Vindhya mountains, so forth, Sampati. Fortunately, Jatayu was saved, and he descended back to earth, and he stayed in the region around Panchavati. And it's near the current city of Nasik. But we're also going to hear shortly, something happened in his life where he became with Dasarath, right? Because when Ram, Lakshman, and Sita enter the Panchavati area, they meet Jatayu. And when they first meet Jatayu, they think they've had some bad experiences with Rakshasa tricks, so they immediately grab their bow and arrow and ready to do what's needed if it's a Rakshasa. And they ask who you are, and he tells his story. He's Jatayu that had his friendship with Dasarath. It took some research, but here's a very nice history that maybe even those of you that are very familiar with Ramayana may not have heard. This is a description of Jatayu's relationship with Dasarath. Music was an intrinsic part of Ayodhya, so much so that the king sponsored musicians to play continuous soul-stirring music across different districts of the capital. Remember, the capital is really big, 96 miles by 24 miles. It's a big place. King Dasarath's brilliance and foresight could be gauged from the way he made systematic arrangements to make the kingdom self-sufficient. Rice grain was always in surplus, and drinking water was sweet, like sugarcane juice. That Dasarath had immense foresight could be seen by Ayodhya's groundbreaking, this sounds like modern writer, groundbreaking irrigation system. Ayodhya had two types of water storage systems. The first was called Deva Matraka, and that's just rains that come from the sky, from the demigods, sending down rain. And the other was Nadi Matraka, or depended upon stored water. Ayodhya depended upon the stored water, which facilitated rainwater harvesting to ensure abundant water supply through years and years of drought. In fact, Ayodhya once faced an 11-year drought, and no one even noticed it. Then it was only in the 12th year that everyone began taking notice, worrying. Word reached the king, and Dasarath then consulted astrologers to find out the exact reason for the drought. The astrologers told Dasarath that the Shani Graha, Saturn's planet, had fiery gaze on his kingdom, and the kingdom became parched. So Dasarath decided he's going to fix that problem. He mounted his chariot and headed toward Shani. As the king came close to the planet, Shani glared at him. His stern gaze alone was enough to topple Dasarath's chariot. From then, it was a hopeless free fall. Dasarath totally lost control. In comes Jatayu to the rescue. Giant vulture named Jatayu, who was flying by, saw Dasarath's plight and flew downward to grab him. He spread out his wings like a safety net, and Dasarath, along with his chariot, fell on it. So colossal was Jatayu that one of his wings was enough to catch Dasarath, his chariot, and all the horses. Jatayu decided to help Dasarath counter Shani. With Jatayu by his side, Dasarath set off to take on Shani yet again. Dasarath's dogged determination pleased Shani, and he agreed to shift his gaze away from Ayodhya. At last, the rains had returned to Ayodhya. Dasarath could not thank Jatayu enough for having saved his life and helped him. So he asked Jatayu to take the liberty of seeking any benediction of his choice. Dasarath was least expecting what was to come. Jatayu requested that when Dasarath begot a son, he should become the son of Jatayu. Although Dasarath was yearning for a son, at this point Dasarath had none, so he had no hesitation in agreeing to what at that time seemed non-possibility. Interesting. So that's how Jatayu had a friendship with Dasarath, through service to Dasarath. And when he explained his relationship with Dasarath, immediately the worries of Ram, just hearing Dasarath's name, And Jatayu's interest was service. He offered, when Ram and Lakshman go into the forest to take care of things, I'll stand guard and protect Sita. So they accepted. And then they built the cottage in Panchavati, and Jatayu was always on the lookout. Then came, the misfortune of Ravana wanting to kidnap Sita. And when that whole event took place, Mother Sita called out to Jatayu. Here's what Sita said. Read sections. In desperation, Sita called out to the trees, the rivers, birds, and animals, begging them to inform Ram that she had been abducted. Just then, Sita saw Jatayu sleeping while perched atop a tree. Sita called out to him, Jatayu, please help me. Please go now and tell Ram that I've been kidnapped by the evil Ravana. Hearing Jatayu's cries, hearing Sita's cries, Jatayu awakened, and seeing how she was being roughly handled by Ravana, he challenged the king of Rakshasas, saying, "Oh, Ravana, I am Jatayu, the king of the vultures. How can you dare lay your hands on the wife of another? Beware, for you are carrying a poisonous snake in your arms. I am now 60,000 years old." Ram's a little younger than that, but of equivalent age to Dasarath. And without weapons, and you are young with many weapons, but I will not allow you to carry away Sita. I warn you, give up your evil intentions, or else prepare to be hurled from your chariot like a ripe fruit falling from a tree. And he goes on. How could a king observant of the codes of martial conduct touch someone else's wife? The wives of kings especially deserve protection. Arrest this degraded idea of touching another man's wife. A sober person should not do that for which another might ridicule him. A wise man should protect others' wives as much as he does his own. Since you are sinful and fickle by nature, how have you achieved the position of a ruler? Like a low-class rogue riding in a celestial vehicle. One who is by nature lusty cannot get rid of that nature, for nobility does not reside for long in the house of the wicked. Since the righteous Ram has committed no crime in your city or kingdom, why do you commit a crime against him? If Kara, while residing in Janastan, exceeded his limits on account of Shurpanakha and was therefore slain by Ram, tell me truthfully, how was that Ram's fault, for which you are now kidnapping his wife? Immediately set Sita free. Who will perform an act which is not conducive to righteousness? As long as I am alive, you cannot take Sita away. I have to do what is pleasing to the great soul Ram and to King Dasarath, even at the risk of my life. Wait! Wait! O Ravana, look, I shall offer you hospitality in the form of a fight as best I can. So that's Ravana's favorite business, is fighting. So a fight ensues. And it's pretty vicious. There's different many different paintings of that fight. He's Jatayu is pierced with Ravan's arrows, and Jatayu, with his claws, he pulls Ravan's hair and scratches his side, and with his beak, he bites his body, and he uses his natural weapons. And then he speaks again. Oh, less intelligent Ravana. Surely it is for the slaughter of the Rakshasas that you are trying to carry away the wife of Ram with your friends and relatives, minister's army and retinue. You are drinking a deadly poison, not foreseeing the results of their activities. The ignorant quickly perish, as you will too. Since you are caught in the noose of death like a fish that has swallowed the hook along with the bait, how will you get free? The manner in which you, a coward, have executed this deed, denounced by the world, is the path trodden by thieves, not heroes. You will shortly lie down dead on the ground like your brother Kara. You have committed such an outrageous action for your own destruction, as a person may do at the time of death. So the battle goes on, and as he said, I'm old and you're young, and I have no weapons and you have weapons. And he does a hero's job of fighting, but Ravana has weapons, and Ravana is very powerful and just loves a fight. One of the things that happens, we can see in this next painting, he manages to break apart the chariot, or the vehicle that Ravana was riding in. It crashes to the ground. His chariot driver is killed, and so his conveyance is taken away. Ravana then starts doing really vicious things. He cuts off his wings, as this painting on the left shows, and Jatayu falls to the ground, not dead, but bleeding to death. And on the right side, there goes Ravan. There's, it doesn't happen in this location, but the celebrated Sita throwing her ornaments over the side cloth happens over Rishimukh mountain. So that's where this is. She's over Rishimukh mountain, throwing down her ornaments. The Vanaras are seeing, capturing. This is a very confusing or involved painting. In the lower right is Sitaram and Lakshman at Panchavati. And in the middle left, that's Ravan convincing Maricha to take the form of a deer. In the far right, Ram is firing at the deer. The deer is just below Ravana's chariot, up in the top. And at the bottom left, he's persuading Sita, etc. And at top is the battle with Jatayu. So his broken chariot is all over the place. He chops off Jatayu's wings, and Jatayu was no match for Ravana's strength. And he was mortally wounded. That's in the far left. And then in the far right, he's flying over Rishi Mountain and dropping her ornaments to some later time to show to Ram that they went that away. So there's many other things that we'll be speaking tomorrow morning about Lakshman, and how Lakshman got spoken to by Sita in such a way he left Sita unprotected. That was Ravana's opportunity to come and do his thing. Sita is stolen. So Ram and Lakshman search everywhere for Sita. It's a really amazing section. It's the kind of lamentation that one might expect to hear from an attached man to his wife who's now missing, stolen, or whatever. But it's a transcendental emotion that Ram is experiencing. Science of it, in terms of rasa, is vipralamba, or love in separation. One of the very first classes, I'll repeat it a little bit, we went into at length, science of rasa. And Rupa Goswami especially, it's one of his special gifts, Vaishnavas of the world, to explain the nature of rasa. His writings were based upon, what's the name of the sage who very, very early taught classic dance, and along with classic dance, Bharatamuni is his name. Anybody here do classic dance when they were young? Bharatamuni. 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 That's my Bharatamuni. For the longest time was the authority on rasa, and his teaching was through classic dance. Different rasas were evoked by dance, mudras, and by the whole procedure that many young girls learn when they take Bharatanatyam dancing or any other classical dancing. It's resting upon Bharat Muni's teachings. Bharat Muni had a fewer number than Rupa Goswami. Rupa Goswami expanded it and said that rasa is not just of this world, but it's transcendental, and this world is a reflection of transcendental. Right? As above, so below. So everything that's there in this world has its spiritual counterpart in this. And for Ramachandra, he's the presiding deity of one of the secondary rasas. Secondary rasa. The primary, it's all, the writing is this thick. So it's lots and lots and lots of details. Just giving a little skeleton of. There's primary rasas that every living entity has. In this world, there's reflections of those primary rasas. In the spiritual world, there's primary rasas. And they're 5 in number. They go from lower to more intense, more intense, more. Neutrality, servitorship, friendship, parental affection, and conjugal love. Neutrality, servitorship, friendship, parental affection, conjugal love. And there's subsets of all of those. So many sets, all of those. 5 primary. And 7 secondary. But secondary rasas have a nature of nurturing and enhancing and amplifying the primary rasa. But it's such that it becomes so intense, the secondary rasa becomes so intense that it seems to eclipse the primary rasa. Something like when there's a tsunami, it covers not just where the tide comes and goes, but it covers everything. And then after the tsunami is over, it recedes and it's back to ebb and flow with tide level. So rasa works like that too. Secondary rasas become so intense that the primary rasa seems gone. Not gone, it's just magnified. And one of those secondary rasas is called shoka, or it's shoka rati. And when those ratis or emotions, feelings, intense feelings, mix with other ones, then it becomes rasa. And it's the rasa of sorrow. In Ramayana, how much sorrow is there? Too much, right? But it's an ecstasy. What? Sorrow is an ecstasy. It's a transcendental enhancement of feelings of love. It's described that for there to be sorrow, preceding that has to be some meeting or some relationship, the primary rasa. And then when that looks like that object of affection is going or gone, or you may not see them or something, or separation or something, the absence makes the heart grow fonder. It intensifies the primary rasa. Then there's again meeting. So that's what Ram is doing right now in this painting, looking beside himself because of affection for Sita, transcendental affection. It's not not the other kind, the transcendental kind. And he is acting like a mortal, but he's not. Then suddenly he goes into this mood of anger. He decides he's going to destroy creation. I made the creation, and I'm going to destroy the creation. And he gets his bow ready and says heavy. His divinity is now in full display, and Lakshman has to bring him. At this stage, according to the commentators, Lakshman is acting like Guru. He's acting even Guru Ramachandra. And he gives instructions, transcendental instructions about duty, detachment, and real thing that we need to do is find Sita. So let's find Sita. Let's put our mind. You're a hero. Anyway, different things. So they continue, and they see some signs. He went that way. So they follow the signs, and they finally find Jatayu. And it's a very, when they first see Jatayu, they also think, "What's that?" And they get their bows ready because maybe it's a trick, and then get closer. So this is how Ram is receiving one who has done the Atmanivedana program right to the very end. And he recognizes it and honors him. And so many nice things are said. Jatayu is barely able to breathe. Ram wants Lakshman to prepare the funeral rites for Jatayu, saying, I was unable to perform the funeral rites for my father. And so he performs the funeral rites for Jatayu, places Jatayu in a fire, and so on. And he embraces him. He's very, very affectionate. So anyone, Ram's nature, it's human nature, and in its perfection is in Ram's nature, those who take shelter of. So before Jatayu departs, Ram asks him, please say whatever it is that you know about the situation of Sita being kidnapped, because you did this battle. Who was it and which way did he go? And say whatever you can. So, dying Jatayu's parting words. Ravana took Sita away at a particular time of day known as Vinda. If a person loses something at this time, he will surely reclaim it very soon, my dear Rama. Do not be overly aggrieved because of Sita, for you shall certainly regain her after killing the Rakshasa king in battle. Then Jatayu described Ravana's exalted lineage, going all the way Brahma, Pulasya, Vishravas, and so on. He suddenly gasped his last breath while uttering, Rama, Rama. Rama then told Lakshman, I am more saddened at this death of Jatayu, who selflessly gave his life for my sake, than the kidnapping of Sita. Go now and bring some wood and logs so we may cremate his body. O Jatayu, with my permission, go to that transcendental world. Since I have purified you, you may now go there. Let it be known that Jatayu will attain highest destination as a reward for his service rendered unto me. So that's the end of Jatayu. His soul departs and goes to the spiritual world. And there's the natural feelings of mourning for a departed and very dear soul. And Ram comments that he didn't get to perform the funeral rites for his own father, but he was able to perform funeral rites for Jatayu. So he's very a painting showing he's ascending to Vaikuntha in his four-armed form. So that's one of the two brothers, and then comes the other brother, Sampati. And we don't even hear about Sampati till much later. And that's when the Vanaras who went in the southerly direction, led by Angada, but accompanied by Hanuman and Jambavan and others, they can't find Sita. And so Angada decides to fast until death, saying things like, he told us, Sugriva said, if you don't come back within 30 days, he'll destroy us. He's a very cruel person. He's, I don't trust him. All of his ill feelings towards Sugriva come out. And he decides he's going to fast until death. And the others are moved. He's the son of Vali. They're used to following Vali. So they also sit down by the shore of the ocean, decide to fast until. And watching all of this from a cave and a nearby hill is Sampati. And Sampati speaks loud enough that they all hear. And they hear Sampati say that this is my good fortune. I don't have wings, I can't go get my food, and here's food. So when they fast until death, I'll feast on their deceased bodies of all the Vanaras. And then comes a really nice section. Hanuman heard what Angada said. He heard what Sampati said. Hanuman speaks. You have heard in its entirety of the service rendered by Jatayu, the king of vultures, who was so desirous of pleasing Sita. Similarly, all living beings, even those born in animal species, do what is pleasing to Ram, giving up their lives, like us. Bound by love and compassion for Ram, people serve each other. Therefore, give up your very lives in the attempt to serve him. Jatayu, who knew what duty was, did a thing pleasing to Ram by laying down his life. We have traversed a difficult path in order to please Lord Ram, and we are now exhausted and about to lose our lives without having found Sita. Jatayu was fortunate to be slain by Ravan, for thus he attained the supreme destination and is freed from fear of Sugriva. The monkeys have fallen into calamity by the death of Jatayu and King Dasarath and by the abduction of Sita. Ram and Lakshman's exile in the forest with Sita, Ram's slaying of Vali with an arrow, and the annihilation of the Rakshasas because of Ram's anger, all of these are brought about by the boons Kaikeyi requested. His mind being greatly agitated by hearing their mournful lamentations and seeing them fallen on the ground, the wise Sampati, king of the vultures, spoke piteously. That's this painting. After Sampati said, "Who speaks of the slaughter of my brother Jatayu? Who is dearer to me than my own life, thus causing my heart to tremble? How did a battle take place between him and a Rakshasa in Janastan? I am hearing my brother's name after a very, very long time. With your help, I wish to come down from this mountain perch. I am very pleased to hear the praising of my younger brother after such a long time, for he was qualified and deserving of praise for his prowess. O monkeys, I wish to hear about the death of my brother Jatayu, who lived in Janastan. How did King Dasarath, who is a friend of my brother, King Dasarath is a friend of Jatayu, and the father of Ram, die? My wings have been burned by the sun's rays, and therefore I cannot fly. I want to come down from this mountain, O conquerors of enemies." So he wants them to help because he doesn't have wings to fly. Take him from the cave where he is observing all this, and they decide, well, you know what? We just heard him say that he was going to eat our bodies, but we're going to fast till death anyway, so what's the harm? So they bring him down. Then Sampati starts to speak about himself after hearing the history of Jatayu's death. Long, long ago, after Indra killed Vritrasura, Jatayu and I wanted to test our prowess and decided to challenge the king of heaven, which is a little different version that we just heard. They made a vow to the sages and Mount Kailash, we're going to follow the path of the sun. The starting point for this is different. They want to go to see Indra. After soaring high into the sky, up into the heavenly planets, we defeated Indra in battle. Then, having become very proud, we decided to rise up even higher. Thereafter, we approached the sun. Jatayu grew faint from the great heat. To save him, I covered Jatayu with my wings. However, as a result, my wings became burned, and I fell down onto the Vindhya mountains. Angada interrupts. It said, if you have this capacity, you're actually the elder brother of Jatayu, and if you actually are a well-wisher, then can you give us information? Where's Ravana? Sampati replied, because I'm now very old and my wings are burnt. I am unable to physically serve Lord Ram. I can, however, do so with my power of speech. I was told that a young lady was carried away by Ravana, and while crying out, "Ram, Ram," she drops some of her ornaments on the ground. I know that this Ravana is the king of the Rakshasas, and his kingdom, Lanka, is situated on an island 100 yojanas from the southern shore, which is where they are. They're at the southern shore. Because I'm a descendant of Kashyapa and Vinita, right? Kashyapa and Vinita, descendant. My vision extends for more than 100 yojanas. That means he's able to see. Thus, I can see the golden city from here. My dear monkeys, you will be able to find Sita in Lanka, guarded by the Rakshasa women. Now, please be so kind as to grant me one favor in return. Take me to the ocean so that I can offer water for the departed soul of my brother. So they're really happy now they know where Sita is. So they take Sampati to the ocean, does the rituals, and then Jambavan speaks and says, how did you learn that Sita had been abducted by Ravana? Sampati replies, after my wings were burned and I fell onto the Vindhya mountains, my son, Suparshva, began to take care of me and bring me food. Once, I was very hungry, and when Suparshva returned home without food, I chastised him. My son then said, while searching for flesh today, I happened to see a giant Rakshasa carrying away a young woman in the air. I wanted to bring both of them to you to eat, but the Rakshasa asked me in a friendly manner for me to allow him to pass by. Thus I could not refuse his request. Afterwards, the Siddhas came and informed me of Ravana's identity, saying that this was fortunate that this Rakshasa had not killed me. Sampati could now see that the monkeys were now confident in his friendship. He then continued narrating his life story. After I fell onto the Vindhya mountains, I remained unconscious for 6 days. When I came to my senses, I went to see the great sage Nishakara, who was living nearby and was known to my brother and me. When I met the rishi, he asked me how my wings had been burned, and I explained the entire incident. I explained that after falling from the sky and not hearing from my brother, in my crippled condition, I contemplated committing suicide by jumping from a mountain peak. Thus, as I stood before him, tears flowing from my eyes, Nishakara replied, do not despair, for I give you the following benediction. Good one. When at a future date you give information to the monkeys about Sita, your wings will reappear, along with renewed energy. Saying this, the sage Nishakara retired to his cottage, and I crawled back to my place in the Vindhya mountains. Thereafter I simply spent my time waiting for your arrival. After 8,000 years passed, the rishi Nishakara gave up his body and went to heaven. Now in his absence, I had begun to doubt the validity of his words. Then, as Sampati continued speaking to the monkeys, a pair of wings suddenly sprouted on his body, while simultaneously he felt a surge of youthful energy. With great delight, Sampati encouraged the monkeys to resume their search for Sita. Then, as Sampati soared into the sky, the monkeys headed south, rejuvenated. They couldn't have too far south to go because they're by the. But here's a nice painting of Sampati being really big, because remember, Jatayu was also really big. And he's looking and he's seeing Jatayu. Excuse me, he's seeing Sita in Lanka. So here's Sampati with his wings starting to sprout, and then he takes off. And this is another painting, the last of our paintings, of Sampati flies away. So the rest, I think we can continue tomorrow. it's kind of a toss-up between maybe to continue the narration, it would be probably good to begin Sundarakanda tomorrow morning. We spent some time already, one whole session discussing Hanuman's life up to this point, and now we can release that tomorrow. It's Hanuman's turn. Sundarakanda, really nice section. You can't say enough about Hanuman. Thinking this. So Jatayu, the younger brother of the two, did service to Dasharath, and he did service to Ram, and he gave his life. He wanted just to be in Ram's service. And he did. He gave up his life. Sita didn't say, stop him. She said, find Ram and tell Ram I've been kidnapped. But he didn't go find Ram to tell Ram Sita was kidnapped. I can't stand by and let Sita be taken. If it means giving up my life, I'll give up my life, but I can't stand by and let it happen. No, it would have been a different story if he had gone to tell Ram that Sita had been kidnapped. Mine is what it is. He fought, gave his life to Vaikuntha for that service to the Lord. We had this discussion a couple of times. I'll mention it again. The question has been raised for a period of time. What's the destination of the demons that were killed by in Lanka and otherwise in the forest? And the answer, not really like all over the place, but it's in some one special place. It's mentioned that they attained heaven, which part of heaven is called Vira Swarga. It's the place in heaven where Kshatriyas who are killed in battle go. Where that place is and like there, right? But in this case, Jatayu, because it wasn't just codes of Dharma that elevated him, because Kshatriyas that follow Kshatriya codes, they're elevated to heaven. That's the benefit of Dharma is heaven. And then the benefit of surrender is Vaikuntha. It's not necessary that, the valiant effort of giving up your life, like Shabari didn't give up her life, but she lived her life under the order of her spiritual master, the sage Matanga, and her life was fulfilling his order, which was, after some time, Ram will come here and should serve him, and you can leave. And hearing what she did, what Shabari did, to me it sounds like deity worship. I mean, it's not deity, but it sounds like every day there was an ashram. So every day she had a broom and she made the ashram clean. This may be the day that Ram comes. He was anticipating Ram's coming. Like, we should be anticipating, like this message that we heard at the very beginning. The opportunity, it's one of the 18 items, is the opportunity to render some direct service. That was Lakshman's hankering. It was Bharata's hankering. It's one of the lessons of Ramayana is to hanker for direct service of the Lord. And deity worship is like that. That the deity is the Lord. How much realization do we have is another thing. serving the deity where so she would go into the forest and gather berries and have something ready for him, have some fresh water, have a clean place. That was her meditation. Service to her guru, but doesn't give an indication what period of time passed, but long periods of time, years perhaps, every day for years, serving. Will this be the day that he will already every day? It's not the same, but it's similar to Vidura's wife. He had the opportunity to serve Krishna directly. Krishna came to Hastinapur. He said, the only place that's fit for me to stay in the whole house of wife was so to have the opportunity to provide something directly. Offered the wrong thing. Krishna was love. And this is a teaching of surrender, or teaching bhakti. The patience, however long it takes, just like, let's go back to that nice expression. Engage in devotional service in full surrender on a daily basis with one's mind fixed upon the Charanya, or Lord Ramachandra, or Krishna, or Bhagavan. Wait for the time when his body falls. For our life, however long. Lakshman speaks the same in Panchavati. I'm here for 100 years or eternity, however long. I'm just at your service. It's an elevated emotion, sentiment, but it's a sentiment of surrender. And we're not there yet. We can say those things, or maybe have those feelings to some degree. But the cultivation of those feelings and the activities that go with those values in life are that's bhakti. Lesson of Jatayu is one such. A nice face. One's all masked up. Thank you. Even the young people. Ram, you love wearing a mask, right? We have a. For there's some people online, so we want the online people to be. Could you hold off? Wait till you get the microphone, so that the people online can hear what you have. Thanks. Speak directly, yeah.
Hello. Okay.
That's good. Good. Speak.
So, ready?
You're on.
Okay. Even if Lakshmana was there to guard Sita at Panchavati when Ravana came, is it possible for him to stop him? Is he strong enough?
Oh, of course.
If that is the case,
he is a direct expansion.
of
He's one of the Chatra Vyuha forms of the Lord. Does he have the strength? So now your next question, if that's the case, then
but then why did they ask Vibhishana, right, Ramana's brother, to tell a lie so that they find out the truth of that what he has in Amrita Bhanda? They could have killed him, but so I don't think he would have stopped him, because he did not know the secret of Ravana's strength. Even if Lakshmana was there, Ravana could have taken her away. That's my concern or suspicion.
Clever question. You have an answer? You want to answer his question? Go ahead.
Didn't Lakshmana make the circle thing with some powder before leaving?
Yeah, that's a separate question.
No, if he made that, then Lakshmana doesn't even need to protect her because it's all right. So if she stays on one side of the circle thing and Ravana's on the other, he can't get to the other side. So if she just stayed on that side, then there's no problem.
Yeah, but that's a separate question. I'll take your question. Your topic is separate, and I'll respond. The response is clever question. But the answer to your clever question is, who is the source of everything? Krishna or Vishnu is the source of everything. So if Lakshman had stayed, the source of everything could have made an arrangement for Lakshman to understand that which prior to that he didn't understand. Let's remember that Ram is not just a jiva, and Lakshman is not just a jiva, who are in the roles of a king or a prince and his brother. He's the personality of Godhead. And so the personality of Godhead has capacities that you and I and ordinary people don't have. If there was a necessity for Lakshman to know that which he didn't know initially, the arrangement would have been made by the Lord's own inconceivable potency. So the impossible becomes possible. How? By the inconceivable potencies of the Supreme Lord. That's how the impossible becomes possible. Mystery, one of the big, delightful mysteries of the personality of Godhead is unlimited and inconceivable potencies. So things that cannot be done can be done. Let me give you a classic example of that. Europe, there was a teaching called stone paradox. Familiar with the stone paradox? Have? Stone paradox goes like this. This is an atheistic philosopher trying to disprove the existence of God. The atheistic philosopher says, here's a question for you, theist. Is God capable of creating a stone that's so heavy he can't lift it? The paradox. Because if you say, no, he can't create something so heavy he can't lift it, there's something he can't do, so he's not. And if he can create something that's so heavy he can't lift it, then he's not God because there's something he can't do. Called the stone paradox. And there's different answers, transcendental answers. And the key to those transcendental answers is the inconceivable, unlimited and inconceivable potency of God, his Swarup Shakti. By his Swarup Shakti, he can create something so heavy he can't lift it, then lift it. Or not only he can lift that which he can't lift, but he can place it on his back, like in the turning of the Milk Ocean. The giant mountain was on Kurma's back, and then he sat on top of the mountain. He couldn't lift it, but then he could lift it, and then top of the mountain. So, by his inconceivable potencies, Lakshman could have done that which couldn't be done, and then he could do it. My answer to your question. But that's not how the Leela was laid out. So it's an interesting and clever question. Yes, he could not know how to kill Ravana. So to your question, the the Lakshman Rekha, I was just hearing someone speaking about this in a recorded YouTube. It's not in Valmiki Ramayana, and Valmiki Ramayana is the gold standard. So is it a legitimate pastime? It's a legitimate pastime, although it's not in Valmiki Ramayana. Because we say legitimate because the author had undivided devotion to Lord Ram. Tulsi Das authored that particular pastime, and he had realizations. And Lord Ramchandra reveals things to his devotees as he revealed things to Valmiki. He revealed things to others who have undivided devotion and total absorption in him. And even it's said in the life of Tulsidas that Lord Ram appeared before him and instructed him to write. Wrote. So let's just take it that it's the pastime, although not found in Valmiki Ramayana, it's a valid pastime. There's diversity in the Lord's pastimes. And by that pastime, he made this circle on the ground, is Rekha. Rekha means. So with his bow, he made a mark on the sand and said, "Don't step outside." But she unfortunately stepped out. That was what allowed Ravan to kidnap her. He was disobeying the order of Lakshman at that point, is acting as guru. Disobeyed the order of guru. He was now vulnerable to Maya, grip of Maya. So stay within the order of guru or stay within the order of Lakshmana, and you're protected. That okay? You want to discuss that a little bit more? You're good. Okay. Back in the back.
Earlier, you mentioned Ramayana as a sorrow story, right? And there is ecstasy in that.
Maybe what?
Ecstasy. There is ecstasy even in the pain and sorrow in
Yeah.
the story of Ramayana.
Yeah, it's a type of ecstasy.
Yeah, but ecstasy generally we think it's the state of mind when you're happy.
Yeah.
So how can sorrow be leading to ecstasy?
It's transcendental. By mundane calculation, it's bad. It's not joy. It's sorrow. And sorrow is not joy. Joy is not sorrow. So it's black and white. That's this world in which we live, is the world of duality. Whenever there's this, there's that. It's the place of duality. And the place of absolutes, that feeling of missing one's beloved is not, it looks like the sorrow that we know, but it's not. It's an ecstasy. It's an heightened state of love. To a worldly person, that's not joy. That's not ecstasy. To a transcendentalist, they have a different lens or different way of viewing things. Not the duality way of viewing things, the absolute way of viewing things. Now, you and I may have a tendency, because we're conditioned souls, to look at things through the lens of a conditioned soul. And your question arises from that perspective. It's definitely not. It's sad. And then from a transcendental lens, it's ecstasy. There's a reasonable explanation. It's not a proof, but a reasonable explanation is, if it was worldly kind of sorrow or sadness or pain, how is it possible that Hanuman can go on and on and on and on and sing the glories of Ram that's filled with this secondary rasa? If it was painful, it wouldn't. couldn't. But it's ecstatic. No, that's not a proof. It's an expression that helps one understand the nature. And you have Srimad Bhagavatam in your home? Canto 5, chapter 19. In the early verses of chapter 19, there's 10 verses where Hanuman speaks prayers about Lord Ramachandra. And in 2 of those verses, he answers this question that you're asking. He says, Hanuman says, it's just not possible that Sita can be separated from Ram, or Sita can be separated from Lakshman, because that happens at the very, very end of Ramayana, separated from Lakshman. Not possible. Any more than the sunshine can be separated from the sun. Not possible. Therefore, it's a Leela. And in that Leela, there's a rasa. And the rasa is ecstatic. To a worldly observer, it's not. To a worldly observer, it's sad. But to Hanuman, it's ecstatic. You can look those verses up. They're really nice. 10 verses. Anyone else? You have any? Okay, we have a question in the front row.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, just a clarification. The benediction that Jatayu asked of Dasharath, was that fulfilled by Ram performing his last rites?
No, it was performed by the parental affection that Jatayu had for Ram,
Okay.
guarding Sita and Ram, like a father would guard a son and his daughter-in-law. Her parents liked that feeling of being protective of their children, so that was the opportunity. Wait. You have a different view. Go ahead.
I think because Prabhu said earlier in the beginning that Jatayu asked Dasharatha to give him a son. His son to be treated as Jatayu's son. That's why when Dasharatha did not have any son, then probably he, I don't know, promised or agreed to treat his son as sons of or son of Jatayu. So for him, for Jatayu, Ram is just like a son.
Yes, that's right. That's right. See, we're in agreement. Something else?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So this is about the Kim Purusha Varsha you were talking about yesterday. That's where where Hanumanji lives and chant glories of Lord Ram. Then you also said that there other Ram Bhakta also lives. They also live there.
Yes.
So who else? Is there any explanation of that in Bhagavatam?
There's only one other name, and I forget the name, but somebody that has their handheld device can look up the name right now, and it mentions him and others. Together they are constantly singing praises of Ram.
So
It doesn't give names of others. It doesn't give any further details. It just says this other person, the king, and others who are there. That's what they do. That's all it says. And looking in other commentaries, there's nothing else about who those other people are. Ram Bhaktas, that's all.
Is this different than the Veera Swarga where the...
Oh, yes, it's different. Yeah. Svarga, just a little Vedic cosmology sidebar. Bhuvloka, Bhuvarloka, Svargaloka. Svarga is above Bhuvarloka, which is above Bhuloka, and Impurusha is part of Bhuloka. It's part of the central island, Jambudvip, one of the 9 Varshas in Jambudvip. Varsha. It's in this plane, not the Svarga plane.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Go ahead, take it.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj.
I think everyone should be eager to ask a question. So you can take that mask off for at least 2 minutes.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. You've mentioned about Veer Swarga. Is there any reference or anything mentioned that whether everyone attained Veer Swarga or is there anyone who attained Vaikunthas?
Your question is very broad. Those who are followers of Dharma and are Kshatriyas and are killed in battle, that's their destination. If they're killed in battle and they're followers of Dharma. If they're followers of the personality of Godhead, if they're Vaishnavas, they attain Vaikuntha. And those who are killed by Krishna, they don't go to this Vilaswarga. That's described in Srimad Bhagavatam. Very. You want the reference? The easy one to find. Canto 2, Chapter 7, verse something like 34, 24, something in that range. And it gives a long, long list of those who were killed by Krishna, those who were killed by Krishna's devotees. They achieve the spiritual world on Krishna's behalf or by Krishna directly. Does that answer your question? Now let's go over here.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you for another beautiful lecture. Maharaj, you mentioned about also people getting killed by Krishna's devotees, getting liberated and go to Vaikuntha. But for example, I don't think Duryodhana actually went to Veeraswarga, not to Vaikuntha. Even like Bhima was a devotee of Lord Krishna. If I go with that understanding, then it conflicts with that statement. How do I understand this, Maharaj?
Well, I know how I understand it. And I understand it through Shastra Praman. And it's directly expressed in Srimad Bhagavatam, that is the Amala Pramana, that those killed by Krishna or Krishna's devotees achieve spiritual realm. Now, what you're saying may have another authority, and it's certainly there are scriptural authorities that do not always concur. Those scriptural authorities not always concur. And for my part, Srimad Bhagavatam is like the Supreme Court. It's the highest authority, and all other authorities are reported to. I'll give one very. According to Mahabharata, where did the Pandavas go?
Swarga.
According to Srimad Bhagavatam, where did the Pandavas go?
In
In their self-same body, they joined Krishna in his eternal abode. Vyasadeva and Vyasadeva. This place saying heaven, that place saying in their self-same bodies, they achieve the spiritual world. Now in Ramayana, we know that Vishishta said, that's against Dharma. Vishanku's desire go to heaven in the self same body. It's not dharmic. You're not qualified, and so I'm not going to help. Vishwamitra made a new Swarga, and he went there upside down. But that's Ramayana. Now, how is it, if that's a rule according to Vishishta, then how is it that not only that the Pandavas didn't go to heaven, but as Mahabharata says, but they attained the spiritual world, where it's Lord. Now, that's because those who are followers of Lord Chaitanya, and I'm a follower of Lord Chaitanya, on his authority, he accepted Srimad Bhagavatam as the topmost authority. And if you like to read, but maybe you'd like to read Tattva Sandarbha, and you'll find in Tattva Sandarbha very long in the Pramana Kanda section, evidence section, Pramana Kanda section, where Jiva Goswami elaborately explains why Srimad Bhagavatam is the Amala for transcendental matters. If you want some help finding that information, ask me in December. I'll find it for you, because I'm like up to here, but it's available. Tattva Sandarbha.
So, Maharaj, can I understand that as per Srimad Bhagavatam, Duryodhana went to was
All of
liberated?
those killed by Krishna or Krishna's devotees attained the spiritual world.
Thank you.
We can understand from Bhagavatam authority. And it's not in commentary, it's directly in.
Thank you so much.
Now, here's you've been around, so you've been hearing something that we've been repeating. From Padma Purana, the statement is there. When there's discrepancies between different scriptural sources, specifically it says amongst the 1 billion varieties of authorized Ramayanas, besides the unauthorized one, when there's discrepancy, you can understand it's a different day of Brahma. It's a Kalpa Beta explanation. So the authority that you're familiar with may be in that Kalpa Beta example. Srimad Bhagavatam is speaking of a different Kalpa than the authority that you're familiar with, so Shanti. You don't have to have a dueling match about which was it this or that. Yes, sir. What? Okay, you're an enthusiastic gentleman.
If anybody killed by Krishna goes to Vaikuntha or
The
spiritual
spiritual
world,
world, yes.
Shishupala has defied him 99 times, in the 100th time he was killed.
Yes, he was.
So he also he should have gone to Vaikuntha
He did.
by rule.
He
So-
did.
So what I get from this is that not only the devotees, even those people who defy God.
No, not just not defy God. Shishu, yeah, but thank you for your thoughtful question. Very thoughtful gentleman. I like your question.
Thank you.
Do you have Srimad Bhagavatam in your home?
Actually,
But do you have a Srimad Bhagavatam in your home? Okay. 7th canto, chapter 1, addresses your question. Because in the beginning of that chapter 1, canto 7, your question is asked by Yudhisthira to Narada. In the presence of Krishna, at the Rajasuya Yagya, they witnessed Shishupal getting liberated. And Yudhisthira says, "What happened? He was a bad guy. He was vicious. He was inimical towards people. And we saw him get liberated. How'd that happen?" And the whole first chapter is an answer to that question. His mind was completely fixed on. He was saying Krishna's name since childhood, in scorn and derision, and that's a kind of namabas. It's not namaparad, it's namabas. You can read, because that's found in that section, and it's found later, chapter 3, chapter 2, and chapter 3. It's the science of, nama tattva, science of how important is the holy name. Even a bad person like Shishupal, calling Krishna's name, calling Krishna's name, calling Krishna's name, he became elevated. When he died, he was thinking of Krishna, inimical, but he was thinking of Krishna. He got liberation. Here's another detail. Who was Shishupal before he was Shishupal? For 3 lifetimes, he's Jayan Vijay. This was the 3rd lifetime. Where did he go? Jayan Vijay. Vaikuntha, right? Canto 7, chapter 1. Find so many nights. So many nights. Yeah, and it's very practical. Like, we're not chanting the pure holy name, but we're all chanting. Some more, some less, but we're chanting. Little, something. And that chanting that we're doing is very powerful. And then there's teaching of how to get to beyond Abbas to Shuddhanam. And that's, part of what we're doing. There's benefit just hearing Ram's name. How many times this evening have we heard Ram's name? And hearing Ram's name even once, so beneficial. And then hearing and hearing and hearing, and not only his name, but his pastimes, his loving exchanges, his ecstasies that look like sorrow, but they're ecstasies. That's it. Anyway, so our love for the Supreme Lord is being stimulated by sound. And that sound form is not different than the person. Sound form is not different than we're associating with the person through sound. No, it's nice. We don't have to do anything. We just sit here and listen attentively. That sound vibration, Ramayana, in its 7 khandas, this is something Govindaraj describes. Each of the 7 khandas, is a feature of Lord Ramachandra's this meditation, like deity darshan. Sound. Anything final? Go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Is it possible to show that cardinal rule number 9? I was looking at the sequence of that rule, and I'm sure I'm looking at it incorrectly, so please correct me. A person who is eligible to surrender unto the Lord should engage in devotional service.
Well, maybe the grammar is a little awkward.
Because we're taught, through the process
Everyone's
of devotional, yes.
And you just have to be a spirit soul in your element.
And through the process of devotional services, one becomes eligible to surrender to the Lord.
Well, I did a little editing because the text was longer. It says, as described above. So it's the full surrender as described. Eligible. This is what they do. We're gonna something over here. Something over here. Something over here. Boys, do you have anything? Okay, go ahead.
Hello, Maharaj. So I have one basic question, like, is Ram and Krishna by birth, like, they attain the highest state of spirituality, or because of the reincarnation of Lord Vishnu, I mean, they got it? Or like, is it a spiritual journey that, they also like, had gone through and attained that highest state?
I think I understand. Let me state back your question. Did they undergo something to attain that state, or were they, by their very essence, in that state? It's the latter.
That's correct.
It's the latter. Because they're forms of the personality of Godhead. In this morning's discussion, we spoke about the circumstances surrounding Ram's birth, Shringa, and the whole thing. So, but the very, very beginning was a verse from Brahma Samhita. Ramadi Murti Shukala Niyamenati. Celebrated verse. Na Batarma Karol Bhuvaneshu Kintu Krishna Swayam Samavak Paramak Pumanyo. Rama and others, Rama Adi, beginning with Ram, Rama, Nrsimha, etc., they don't become something. They are Alabhishesho. They're forms of the Lord. The Lord is unlimited, and in his unlimitedness, he has unlimited potencies, and he manifests himself in different forms, although those different forms aren't different entities, it's one entity, manifesting in different forms. And that they don't become anything, they are the personality of Godhead in his various unlimited numbers of dimensions. Allah Abhishek. Okay, that answer your question? It's like, for example, when Krishna lifted Govardhan Hill, how old was he? 7. Did he do any, yoga or any asanas or austerities or anything to become able to lift Govardhan Hill? Before that, when he was just 3 days old, Putana came and he destroyed Putana. She was a wicked personality. And effortless. He was God from the very beginning. When he appeared in the prison house of Kamsa, he didn't become God. He was four-armed Vasudeva Krishna. His parents said, "Can you assume a child form?" Sure. He's from the very outset. And in Ram's case, just at the very time the yajna was being performed by Rishi Shringa, the demigods were asking Brahma for a solution because Ravana gave this benediction. Can't do anything about Ravana. He said, global, universal terrorist. Please do make them arrest. So just then Vishnu came. They appealed to Vishnu, said, no problem. I will be appearing as the 4 sons of Dasara just now, and I'll take care of Ravana. He was Vishnu and didn't become anything. He was Vishnu. And the 3 brothers also, Vishnu Tattva. Okay, I think we'll end. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada.